KBOO News in Depth, where we take a deeper look at the top news stories impacting our community.
And you are listening to KBOO News in Depth. I'm your host, Althea Billings, today. We are speaking with Allison Moore, a community organizer and volunteer director of the Portland Psychedelic Society. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. So your organization has an event coming up next month that I want us to get into in a moment. But before we get there, tell me about the Portland Psychedelic Society. What's it all about?
Yeah, so the Portland Psychedelic Society is a nonprofit organization. We are fully run by volunteers and fueled by donations from people from within our community. As a mission, Portland Psychedelic Society creates inclusive space and community for psychedelic integration, education, and research. It's been around for many years, but we're really trying to bring in folks who are curious about all the changing landscapes, especially with Measure 109 that legalized psilocybin services, as a place to land and seek out more information if they're interested in learning more about alternative healing modalities.
Right. And the Portland Psychedelic Society is hosting this event on March 28th called Discovering Psychedelics, an Intro and Community Forum. What can folks expect from that event?
Yeah, so we've partnered with the Clinton Street Theater. We have a contract with them to do actually 6 events in this year. We did a January event, which was just a movie. And then our March event is something that's going to be a little bit more of a panel of experts from the community. So we'll be talking about harm reduction, we'll be talking about neuroscience, we'll be talking about the integration process, and just kind of an intro to what psychedelics are. And it'll be a panel of folks from our community who are experts in their field. The names of the speakers haven't been announced yet, but I can tell you one, Aaron Iacin, who is a graduate level student at OHSU in the psychiatry program, I believe. But he
Exclusive.
spoke at, yeah, exactly. He spoke at our symposium that we put on last year, and his talk was just a hit. So we wanted to bring him back to give a little blurb about what he's doing now, and to give people some science behind, what is happening politically.
Yeah. Well, there's a term that you use. I wonder if you can break it down for me. What do you mean by psychedelic integration? What does that
Psychedelic integration.
entail?
Yeah.
If it's a big question, I apologize.
No, I love this question. So, I think one misconception that people might have about, psychedelic healing is that somehow it's a magic pill, and, nothing in the world is a magic pill. So what psychedelics really do is they bring up to the center stage issues that people are facing more internally, and they make them a little bit more obvious. They also can help shift perspectives on maybe stuck ways that people might be thinking about themselves or other people or hardships in their life. And the process of integration is really utilizing, talk or movement or just relating with people in the community to really help kind of ingrain those shifts in perspectives and help people maintain the levity and the joy that they might have experienced while on a psychedelic.
Okay. And this March event at the Clinton Street Theater, who is it for? Who do you hope comes to check it out?
Yeah, we're hoping that we can reach people who aren't already a part of our psychedelic community. The Portland Psychedelic Society is one of the largest psychedelic societies in the country. We might be second, but depending on the metrics, we might be number one.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have a huge community. We have a lot of support. We have a lot of people who know what we do and are psychonauts themselves. But we're really hoping to bring people in who aren't as familiar. I'm in a unique position. I do administrative work for a ketamine clinic in Portland, and we are receiving an increasing number of inquiries, people seeking psilocybin services, and it's not available. And I'm hoping that, by coming to do the show and maybe some other media opportunities, that we can reach people who are outside of our community a little bit and make Portland Psychedelic Society sort of like the landing spot for people who are curious and want to know more about what's happening.
Well, that kind of goes into my next question, right? We've mentioned Measure 109 that voters passed in 2020, which allows for psilocybin to be used in therapy. Now that it is the year 2023, where does that initiative stand?
Yeah, so when it passed in 2020, there was an awareness that it was going to take some time. So they had a board of people, a board of advisors figure out what all the rules would be for actually implementing this law. We have seen training programs have started to take on students, and some of the training programs started earlier, some of them later, but the actual students who have been trained in those training programs haven't even graduated yet. And then most recently on, what was it? The applications for licensed service centers, so where people would actually go to receive psilocybin services, the application for those opened on January 2nd, but there haven't actually been any applications approved for licensed service centers yet at this time. So maybe at best we're looking at this summer, just depending on the process of approving the licensed service center applications. But there's a lot of barriers to that. It was a $10,000 licensing fee to become a service center. And there's lots of questions around, federal regulation and issues that may not make opening a service center worth the risk. So it's really yet to be seen how this will actually play out. But that being said, one of the events that Portland Psychedelic Society puts on is a Measure 109 interview series where we've been interviewing the different training programs. So I can tell you that there are people out there who are going to have licensed to facilitate psilocybin services. Where they will operate is still the question at hand. But I think it's also worth mentioning, the same year in 2020, Measure 110 decriminalized all substances. So not to say that, offering psilocybin services is decriminalized. It's actually not. But under the new, political landscape, moving away from the war on drugs, we might see some more impromptu things pop up.
Well, I mean, it is a new frontier, what you're describing. It's building it from scratch, and seeing stuff finally pop up on January 2nd, I think is a long time coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
What got you interested in psychedelics in the Portland Psychedelic Society?
Yeah, so I'm actually originally from the Midwest, from Nebraska, and I moved out to Portland. I had been really involved in drug policy reform, but I was more interested in providing harm reduction services for people who used more marginalized substances. So I was actually volunteering for Measure 110. And before the pandemic, Measure 110 and Measure 109 were operating in the same building, in the same rooms. And so I got to talking with some of the people who were doing Measure 109 stuff. I actually had a friend who was heading the campaign, and they kind of pulled me under their wing to start volunteering for that. And to be honest, I was skeptical of psychedelic healing for a really long time. And then, the pandemic happened, and a huge personal experience for me of isolation and depression and anxiety. And I had been introduced to this idea that psilocybin mushrooms could be used therapeutically, and having used them before recreationally, used them again, and even just the change of my own attitude of like, is there something therapeutic here, brought about a therapeutic reaction for me. And it's been a long journey. I mean, like I said, it's not a magic pill. You don't come out of your psychedelic experience and all of a sudden you're fixed, but it gave me some new tools and it gave me some new perspectives, and really changed the way that I was seeing myself and seeing other people and seeing the opportunities that were in front of me.
That's very cool. If folks are interested in learning more about this event and the Portland Psychedelic Society, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so you can follow us on Instagram. We are at Portland Psychedelic. You can also find us on Meetup, which is an app where you can find all sorts of activities and events happening in your community. We're Portland Psychedelic Society on Meetup. And from there, you can see our whole calendar of events. So we have lots of different affinity group integration circles. We have some community integration circles. We have these sort of one-off events like what's happening in March. You'll see more stuff from the Clinton Street Theater contract that we have coming up. And then, yeah, we have lots of different education events around Measure 109. Like I said, the training program series, I'm sure we'll turn that into a service center series as soon as those start popping up. So if you're interested in learning more about psychedelics in general or what's happening with Measure 109 in Oregon specific, definitely check out Portland Psychedelic Society, again, on Instagram, on Meetup. I think we have a Facebook page too. Yeah, those are probably the best ways.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us about it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I have been speaking with Allison Moore, a community organizer and the volunteer director of the Portland Psychedelic Society. That organization has an upcoming event on March 28th called Discovering Psychedelics, an Intro and Community Forum. This is KBOO News in Depth. I'm Althea Billings. We got more coming at you in just a moment.